For more than 60 years, Hollywood has been haunted by a question it could never answer: the sudden and heartbreaking death of Marilyn Monroe. She was not only a movie star, she was the star, the love goddess of America, whose beauty and charm defined an era. To the world, she embodied perfection, the shining symbol of fame, desire, and timeless glamour. Yet behind the dazzling lights and adoring crowds, Marilyn lived a different story, one filled with sleepless nights, crushing loneliness, and a desperate search for safety. Her smile hid scars, her laughter concealed sorrow, and even at the height of her fame, she often felt like the most fragile person in the room. Then, in August 1962, her life ended far too soon. The official explanation was simple: an overdose. But those who truly knew her whispered a different truth. One of them was Frank Sinatra. Sinatra was more than a friend. He was one of the few who saw the real Marilyn, the vulnerable woman behind the myth. And long after her death, he carried secrets of her final days, revelations that would change forever how the world understood her last hours. Marilyn Monroe was not born a goddess of love, but as Norma Jean, a little girl searching for stability in a world that gave her none. Born on June 1st, 1926, in Los Angeles, her earliest memories were marked not by comfort but by abandonment. Her mother, battling severe mental illness, was placed in an institution, leaving Norma Jean to grow up in foster homes and, at times, an orphanage. Each new household was a reminder that she belonged everywhere and nowhere. By 16, desperate to avoid returning to the orphanage, she married James Dougherty. It was not a love story, but a survival story. That fragile union crumbled quickly, yet it gave her the first glimpse of independence. What truly changed her path was a chance discovery, her luminous beauty captured by a photographer's lens during World War II. The camera adored her, and soon so did the world. By 1946, she had signed with 20th Century Fox and shed the name Norma Jean. In its place, a new identity was born: Marilyn Monroe. She became a star in the making, yet inside she remained the same young girl longing for love, clinging to the hope that fame might finally heal the emptiness she carried from childhood. By the early 1950s, Marilyn Monroe had become more than an actress. She was an icon. With films like Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, How to Marry a Millionaire, and The 7-Year Itch, she defined the era's vision of beauty and desire. Crowds flocked to theatres not just to watch her perform, but to bask in her presence. Her walk, her laugh, even the tilt of her head became cultural landmarks, copied by millions. Yet stardom came with a hidden cost. Every smile was carefully rehearsed, every appearance designed to project perfection. The world adored Marilyn, but Norma Jean, the woman behind the image, remained unseen. The more famous she became, the more isolated she felt. She feared being typecast as nothing more than a blonde bombshell, a fantasy for others to consume but never truly understand. Seeking respect, she turned to the Actors Studio in New York, determined to prove her worth as a serious performer. Her role in Bus Stop surprised critics, earning her praise that hinted at a deeper talent long overshadowed by her beauty. But fame had already woven its trap. Surrounded by managers, handlers, and admirers who wanted a piece of her, Marilyn found herself drowning in expectations she could never satisfy. Behind the glowing marquee lights, she remained the same vulnerable woman, searching for safety in a world that only saw her as a symbol. If the world believed Marilyn Monroe had everything, her private life revealed the opposite. Love, for her, was not a sanctuary but a battlefield. Her first high-profile marriage to baseball legend Joe DiMaggio was a union of icons, the sports hero and the screen goddess. Yet beneath the headlines, their bond fractured under the weight of jealousy and public scrutiny. DiMaggio wanted Marilyn to belong to him alone, but the world demanded her presence, her image, her allure. Within 9 months, the marriage ended in heartbreak. In 1956, she tried again, this time with playwright Arthur Miller. To Marilyn, Miller represented intellect and stability, a man who might finally see her as more than a glamorous mask. At first, their relationship seemed to offer what she longed for: safety, respect, a sense of home. But even this love faltered. Miller's creative frustrations and Marilyn's growing dependency on pills widened the cracks between them. By 1961, their marriage dissolved, leaving her adrift once more. Between marriages, fleeting romances, and whispered affairs only deepened her sense of emptiness. Marilyn was adored by millions, yet she struggled to hold on to the one thing she craved most: unconditional love. Fame had given her everything, except the security of being truly cherished for who she was. By the early 1960s, Marilyn Monroe's carefully polished image was beginning to crumble. Years of pressure, sleepless nights, and the relentless demands of Hollywood had taken their toll. The woman who once lit up the screen with effortless charm now struggled just to keep going. Insomnia plagued her, leading to an increasing reliance on barbiturates and alcohol. What began as a way to cope quietly with stress became a dangerous spiral. Professionally, her career faltered. Projects stalled, contracts fell apart, and her reputation for arriving late or missing shoots fueled whispers that she was unreliable. In truth, she was drowning in exhaustion and emotional turmoil, trapped in a cycle of dependency that no one around her seemed able or willing to break. Friends noticed the change. The once playful Marilyn now seemed fragile, her laughter edged with weariness. Behind closed doors, she fought a silent war with loneliness. Despite her fame, she felt surrounded by people who wanted only the glow of her stardom, not the reality of her struggles. Even those who cared found themselves helpless against the walls she built around her pain. Her final completed film, The Misfits, became both a professional triumph and a personal mirror, a story of broken dreams and quiet despair that reflected her own life all too well. Marilyn was slipping, and those closest to her could sense that the danger was only growing. The summer of 1962 carried with it an air of inevitability. Marilyn Monroe, still only 36, moved through her days with a fragility that those around her could not ignore. Her sleep was broken, her moods unpredictable, and the pills, those small capsules she once believed gave her control, were now controlling her. Friends described her laughter as fleeting, her eyes shadowed with something that felt like resignation. Among those watching most closely was Frank Sinatra. He had known Marilyn for years, not as the glamorous goddess the world adored, but as a vulnerable woman desperate for safety. From a distance, he sensed the danger closing in, and he tried, through phone calls, through friends, through quiet gestures, to keep her anchored. Yet Marilyn, fiercely private and resistant to interference, kept her struggles hidden even from those who cared. Sinatra later admitted that he saw warning signs others overlooked: the restless nights, the fragile smile, the haunting silence after the cameras stopped flashing. He feared she was surrounded by people who wanted pieces of her fame, but none of her pain. And as the days grew heavier, so did his dread. He felt powerless, caught between his protective instincts and her stubborn independence. In those final weeks, tragedy no longer felt like a possibility. It felt like a shadow inching closer, waiting for its moment. When news of Marilyn Monroe's death broke in August 1962, the world was stunned. Rumors swirled immediately, whispers of foul play, secret lovers, and hidden conspiracies. For decades, those stories fueled books, headlines, and endless speculation. Yet one voice, kept quiet for years, would eventually cut through the noise: Frank Sinatra's. Unlike the tabloids, Sinatra had no interest in scandal. His connection to Marilyn was rooted not in gossip, but in genuine care. In private conversations late in his life, he revealed a truth far less sensational but far more human. Marilyn had been consumed by her dependence on pills, compounded by her fragile mental health. There was no grand conspiracy, no hidden hand pulling the strings. Instead, it was the ordinary tragedy of a woman overwhelmed by the very pressures that had once made her a star. When these reflections became known, the response was divided. Some welcomed the clarity, finding comfort in a narrative that honored Marilyn's humanity rather than exploiting her myth. Others rejected Sinatra's account, unwilling to let go of the dramatic theories they had clung to for years. Still, his words shifted the conversation, from scandal to empathy, from conspiracy to compassion. Sinatra's perspective reminded the world that Marilyn Monroe was not just a legend but a person, whose struggles and vulnerabilities made her story all the more heartbreaking. As Frank Sinatra looked back on Marilyn Monroe's life, his reflections carried both sorrow and a warning. He admitted that Hollywood had adored her face, but failed to protect her heart. Fame offered Marilyn everything except the one thing she needed most: safety. And though he had tried in his own way, Sinatra confessed that he wished he had done more. His regret became a mirror for an industry, and for all of us, revealing how easily human pain can be overlooked when hidden behind glamour. Marilyn's story is more than a tale of stardom and scandal. It is a reminder of fragility, of the weight of expectation, and of how quickly the brightest lights can burn out. To remember her only as a legend is to miss the woman she truly was, vulnerable, searching, and human. Sinatra's voice, heavy with regret, stripped away the myths and left behind something more lasting, a call for empathy. Perhaps that is the lesson she leaves us with. To look past the spotlight, to see the person rather than the persona, and to treat even our icons with compassion. What about you? Do you believe Hollywood could have done more to protect Marilyn Monroe, or was her tragedy inevitable? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that reveal the hidden truth behind the legends we thought we knew.